Hi, I'm Mary Wing Soares, and this is another episode of Transparency in Government. With me today is Kevin Smith. Welcome.
Mary, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's
second
good to
show.
see you. Second show.
Right.
We're on a roll here. So, shall we go right to the big news, or should we start with the small stuff?
Sure, we'll go to the big news. Of course, we're taping this on a Tuesday,
Right.
and the big news isn't being announced till Wednesday. So we've asked that this not be broadcast until Thursday. But the big news that everyone will know by the time this airs is that the state has made its proposal to Amazon. Amazon announced a few months ago that they are looking to locate a second headquarters somewhere in the United States.
So like a corporate headquarters.
A corporate headquarters, right, similar to what they have in Seattle.
Okay.
And so the state has made its proposal, and as part of its proposal to Amazon, they've chosen Londonderry, specifically the Woodmont Commons development, as the site to locate Amazon on for its second headquarters. Now, at first blush, people may say, how big a shot does New Hampshire have, does Londonderry have of landing Amazon as opposed to Boston or New York or even the
shot, I would think.
Triangle area? And I would say that when you look at the RFP that Amazon put out, and you start going through all the different criteria of what they're looking for, we actually check off a number of the boxes. And believe it or not, in this proposal, one of our biggest assets may be our proximity to Boston, in that we are literally a stone's throw from Boston. To pull out one example from Amazon's RFP, they said they wanted to be within 45 minutes of an international airport. Well, you can get to Logan Airport pretty much within 45 minutes. Depends what time of day you go.
Right.
You're going to hit some traffic. But the reality is we're actually closer, from Londonderry, we're closer to Logan Airport than where at their Seattle headquarters they are to SeaTac, which is the Seattle International Airport. It's further away from their current headquarters. Proximity to skilled labor or skilled workforce. Again, if you look within a 30-mile radius, there's a population of almost 2 million people. You're pulling people from the 128 corridor, from the 495 belt, all the way up to Concord. So there's quite a skilled labor pool to pull from where we are here in Londonderry. And believe it or not, I think the Boston Globe probably made the best case for locating Amazon in southern New Hampshire over the weekend, in which they talked about if Amazon were to locate near Boston, what the pros and cons were. And there were significant cons that you wouldn't have if you located here in New Hampshire. For instance, they talked about how housing is not affordable down there.
Right.
Well, housing's a lot more affordable in southern New Hampshire, northern Mass, than it is right in downtown Boston. They talked about their subpar school systems. Well, as most people know, New Hampshire has some of the most quality education in the entire country, public education and private. They talked about the immense traffic congestion down in that corridor. Think about for a minute, you know, if you're traveling south every day from southern New Hampshire, it may take you in an hour and a half to go 35 miles. Well, to go 35 miles from Mass to southern New Hampshire, it's going to take you 35 minutes.
Right.
It's the reverse commute.
It is.
So we don't have that traffic congestion either. So what we're saying is, and what the state is saying is, look, you locate in southern New Hampshire, particularly in Londonderry, you get all of the benefits of Boston without all of the headaches that come along with Boston. So we actually think we got a pretty darn good shot. And it really would be a major economic, it would be a game changer economically for New Hampshire, but it really would benefit the entire region, not just Londonderry. The entire region would be benefited by this. Just the new amount of economic development that would come into this area would be unlike anything that this state has ever seen.
So you're thinking Woodmont, that area.
Yeah, well, that is where the state was looking at, I think, a few different sites in southern New Hampshire. clearly southern New Hampshire, it had to be located within the southern New Hampshire region because of the proximity to Boston.
Right.
You can't get really much outside of Manchester, okay? So when they looked at it, they said, okay, now we need to know, knowing what Amazon's needs are, where's the land available, where are the amenities going to be, access to the highway, and zoning. It needs to be shovel-ready pretty much. And it became very apparent after looking at that criteria that Woodmont really fits the bill.
Right.
And that it's been zoned for a lot of commercial development. It's the proximity to the highway, and which is probably one of the best things, is that the majority of it, the bulk of the Amazon development, would go on the east side of the highway, where the future 4A is going to go right into. And you know, some people will say, by the way, that there was, you know, 4A for Amazon. You know, I don't know. Maybe someone had some foresight there. But it literally, that exit goes right into that development, 216 acres.
Right.
So they would have their own dedicated exit. It'd be like Disney World. They'd get right off the exit and they're in the campus.
Right.
And so it's got great access to the highway, and you've got the bus terminal right on site already. Which I'm sure, I mean, it's already a very successful bus terminal. I'm sure it would grow leaps and bounds if Amazon were to locate there. So there's a lot of unique things about Woodmont in that it is shovel ready to meet Amazon's needs and time frame for when they want to go in.
So would Amazon take up that whole 216 acres?
They would,
Yeah.
Yeah, they would. But I would mention that would actually be for future phases. So again, if you read the RFP for Amazon, there's phase 1 and then phases 2 and 3. And phase 1 initially is 500,000 square feet of commercial space. And we'd look to locate that on the west side. One, because 4A won't be ready until, won't be under construction until 2019. But Amazon wants that initial phase 1, they want to be in by 2019. So they could locate initially on the west side, have the connectivity to the downtown, which is what they've asked for in the proposal. And then 10 years down the road, which is what Amazon would be looking at for phases 2 and 3, that would go on the east side of the highway when 4A is built.
Right. Now, I'm sure people will say, okay, if this comes in, does that make argument for 4A going west that much stronger?
I'm sure at some point that would come up. Again, 4A is still only going to be built initially with the eastern access, and that is something that's been vetted through multiple public hearings. It's gone through the current EIS that it's going through right now. They're only looking at the eastern access. Somewhere down the road, when the east side is fully at build out, which again could be 10 to 15 years down the road, I think they're going to have to look at, does it make sense, because they are building a diamond interchange, does it make sense to have the western connectivity at that point? So I think that discussion is something that would be had down the road, but again, I think we're looking years down the road. It's not something immediately that would be on the table.
So 500,000 square feet? Is that what you said?
500,000 square feet, which again, if you look at what has been approved for the west side of Woodmont, it actually, the amount of square footage that's been approved is a lot more than that. So they wouldn't occupy that whole west side. They'd occupy a good portion of it. But again, you wouldn't lose the downtown that we've all heard about with the shops and the restaurants. And the other note is that you have housing, of course, that's programmed in there as well. And, you know, Amazon's talking about at full build out, not initial build, a full build out could be up to 50,000 jobs, okay? Those people are going to need places to live. So again, it's not just Londonderry, it's Derry, it's Manchester, Nashua, Hudson, Windham, Salem. They're all going to benefit by this.
But what would the initial building be in the east side? Because you said the west side would be 500,000 square feet. What would the east side initial building? You said you thought that would start first.
No, the west side would start first.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
okay.
the east side won't start until.
No, I'm sorry, the west side. You said the west side is 500,000 square feet. How large of a building is that? Can you put that in terms of like Home Depot or?
Well, it would be multiple buildings.
Okay.
So that's just it, because you bring up a good point. So they're not, this is a corporate headquarters. So it's not going to be, it's not going to be one giant building. You know, it's not going to be warehouses, and they don't want to build just one large building that's 500,000 square feet. To give an example, if you look at the FedEx building on Pettingill Road, that's 320,000 square feet, but that's one building. But these would be multiple buildings making up 500,000 square feet altogether. Because again, they want a campus type feel, which again is one of those boxes that's checked off. Looking at Woodmont, is that's what we want too. We don't want large buildings on that land. We've said that. And so these would be much smaller buildings, and there'd be different divisions and offices within the different buildings.
Sounds real exciting.
I think it's very exciting. I think it's, you know, as I said, I think we have a good chance of making it to the second round, at least.
When do you hear? Did they give a time specific?
Well, they said the spring of 18. They would.
And they want to be in 19.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know if that means by spring of 18 we'd know if we made it to the second round, or if they would make an announcement by the spring of 18 that that's where they want to go. So I think that we have a good chance, but even if we didn't get it, Mary, I think the fact that the state is highlighting Londonderry, highlighting the Woodmont development, shows that there's a lot of interest in this area. And I think, you know, it's a win-win proposition for the town and for the region.
That's exciting.
It is, yeah. I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, especially because, you know, as you said, it would be a lot of smaller size buildings, but it would be all one shot, and we'd know what was going in there, and there wouldn't be any more guessing, oh, what's going to be there, you know, and I think people would feel more comfortable if they knew. The unknown is a lot more scary than
I agree.
Know,
yeah,
you know?
I agree. I think that would put a lot more people at ease to know that, okay, this is going to take up the majority of what the Woodmont development is. But at the same time, and even looking at Amazon's plans, they wanted a downtown, you know, so it would still, because that was, you know, another question I had from someone who knows of the proposal, said, so are they going to occupy all of the Woodmont spaces? Does that mean the Woodmont plans are scrapped? I said, no, not at all. In fact, it fits almost perfectly into what their plans always were.
What the commercial part was.
Yeah.
Because there always was that commercial component, but there's still the single family homes that'll be along Gilchrist, and there'll be some maybe townhomes or apartments above buildings and things like that. So we're not going to lose that, because there are many people who say to me every single day, when are those condos above going up?
You and I both.
So we can move in and stop mowing the lawn.
You and I both keep hearing that. And that's actually a nice segue into one of the things we were talking about before we came on the air. Is, okay, so what's happening down there right now? Everyone sees a lot of trucks, there's a lot of dirt being moved around. Michael's Way is being constructed, and the goal is to have it completed by Thanksgiving. At least the section between 102 and the end of the Market Basket Plaza, because we all know how crazy that plaza gets around the holidays.
Sure.
And so that's their primary focus, is get that road, at least that section, completed so that there's no more construction going on there by the time Thanksgiving rolls around. But ultimately, they want to have the whole road open so that cars can now start accessing that plaza through Pillsbury Road instead of 102 and Gilchrist. And I'm excited to see what the final product just of that road looks like, because it really is on the designs, and I know you've seen them. I mean, it's really nice in that it's got the center median with the tree line, you know, going all the way down from Pillsbury to 102. You're going to have a bike lane in there as well for the eventual biking connectivity to the development. You'll have the parallel parking for the cars along the Woodmont side. So I think it's going to look very, very nice when it's all done. And then as far as building construction goes, that's going to lag a little behind. But the first building people will probably see going up under construction will be a brewery. And that should be completed by next summer. And that will be on the market basket side. It won't be connected to the current plaza,
Right.
But it will be on that side
Okay.
in the Woodmont development.
Well, I'm sure they're crossing their fingers.
Oh, yes, they've absolutely got to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so $1 million up for
Yes,
grabs.
Yes. Remember that song, If I Had $1 Million?
Yes, I do.
So, you know, here's the good news, and it's something I said last night during the town council meeting when they were deliberating on how to use the fund balance. So the fund balance, just to give people some history, what that is, it's the surplus monies we have at the end of the fiscal year go into an undesignated fund balance. And when I first came on in 2013, we actually didn't have a fund balance. In fact, we were below the limits of where we're supposed to spend, because what you're supposed to do is keep some money in reserve in case of an emergency.
Right. But also, isn't there a component of how much you have in assets that you have to have a certain amount?
Yes. Yeah. Although I will tell you that not every town follows the rule to have so much money in their fund balance. In other words, there are some towns that we found out through some research that we did that will spend down their entire fund balance at the end of their fiscal year when they're setting the tax rate for the next year. I personally don't think I think it's a very risky practice to do that. But it's always been Londonderry's policy, and frankly most towns' policies, that you keep a percentage in reserves for in case of an emergency. And it's based upon the total appropriations in the budget that include both operating budget and your capital expenses. And it's also based on the net appropriations for the school district as well. And there's basically three different formulas. There's the GFOA formula, which is a financial formula, an auditing best practice formula. There's a Department of Revenue formula, and then there's the town formula. The town formula is probably the least conservative of the three formulas. That being said, it still allows us to keep a lot of money in the fund balance. And I think is a good formula to use because it doesn't have us holding on to a ton of money that's getting saved up. You know, so in other words, it's being given back to the taxpayers through one mechanism or another. So going back in 2013, we had depleted the fund balance at that point. So
we still had capital reserve accounts.
We did.
And we still had all these other savings types accounts.
Right.
But that undesignated fund balance was down. And was that because the tax rate was so high and we wanted to make sure that we were a little more consistent, or?
I don't know. I mean, my understanding was that it had been used on multiple warrant articles previously, and it just got to a level where it shouldn't have been at.
Right.
And so we had to go through an entire year of not using any fund balance when we were doing the budget. And then we've slowly over the last few years started building that account back up.
So what is the level that you feel comfortable having? Or
5%.
5%.
In the formula.
Right.
5% is the basement number. So between 5 and 7, 7 being the ceiling, 5 being the bottom line number.
And so at town meeting, when we're always up there saying, how come you're not spending this money, and why don't you just do it in an undesignated fund, and that way we don't have to have our tax rate increased by that amount of money, there's a reason why you don't want to go below that 5%.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So
and that's,
we had $1 million, which was more than 7%?
Well, no. So we actually have, so this year, so there's the entire fund balance, there's the entire undesignated fund balance. And I want to make that distinction too. There's a fund balance, but certain monies are restricted. You can't use. We have then an undesignated fund balance, which means the money's there and it's not designated toward anything. So from that undesignated fund balance, the total amount that we can use before we trigger that 5% this year is $4.2 million. That's
a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. And what I was...
So why are we putting anything on the warrant?
Well, so
for communications or anything else? So
one of the comments I made during the council meeting is I reminded everyone This is a good problem to have. You know,
Sure.
there aren't many communities, I'm sure, around the state that are debating how do we spend $4.2 million. And I don't know the last time it was at a level that high that we could use that amount of money. And so I think that was one of the impetus for Councilor Farrell to say, let's give $1 million back, because this is way more money than we've ever had. And so then there was debate among the council about, well, how best? Do you put it towards warrant articles in the upcoming budget and offset it that way? Do you put it right directly into the tax rate when we set it this August, and then people see it on their tax bills this year? One way or another, they're going to get the money back. It was, how do you distribute that?
Right.
What's the best way to distribute it? And ultimately, what the council decided on was, well, we'll do $500,000 towards the tax rate, which is 13 cents. So when the tax rate for the town side comes out in December this year, the rate's going to be $4.94, which is actually what it was 2 years ago.
Okay.
The current rate is $4.77, so it's gone up a little bit. That being said, the predicted tax rate back when we were doing the March ballot was $5.46. That's what we had predicted it would be if all of the warrant articles passed and revenues and valuations stayed where they were.
Okay, so one of the warrant articles didn't pass.
Right.
But that wasn't responsible for 48 cents.
No, there were, so another great question. So, right, the communications item didn't pass. There was also the softball field lights didn't pass as well. And there was a litter pickup
Right.
warrant article,
Yeah.
and that didn't pass too. But all of those articles together didn't make up for the 46 cents. So where did the rest of it come from? Well, when we're predicting the rate, this is what I always tell people, it's a prediction.
It is a prediction.
That you're doing in March.
Right.
And we all, myself and the finance director, we predict conservatively, because we'd much rather have it like this, where we can say, hey, we came in 40 cents lower, than going, oops, we're coming in 40 cents higher. So
Right.
we do it conservatively. And so we estimated our revenues conservatively. We estimated the valuation increase conservatively. Fortunately, the economy's still good. It's
Right.
not going to be like this forever. It's still good, though, and it's going strong. So our revenues continue to come in a lot higher than we thought, and our valuation continues to go up more than we thought it was going to. So when you add the additional outside revenues, the higher valuation, coupled with some of these warrant articles not passing, it brought the rate all the way down to $5.07.
Right.
Now you add on top of that 13 cents because of the $500,000, and gets it to $4.94.
Right.
So that still leaves roughly $3.7 million that can be used and should be used. Maybe not all of it, but most of it can be used when we're putting the warrant articles together on this upcoming budget.
Right.
And one of the questions that council asked me last night was, well, do you plan on putting, I mean, ultimately the council's going to decide as
Sure.
they go through. But one of the things they said, are you planning on putting all of it toward the communications project? And I don't know yet what that will look like, but what I did say is I prefer to spread around that money, because there's still other warrant articles that I want to see pass: roadway maintenance,
Sure.
expendable maintenance, fire equipment. That's a capital account for that. And so we've been using some fund balance money previously for those items. My intention is to continue to do that.
But are you using fund balance money or undesignated fund balance money?
Undesignated
Okay.
fund balance money.
All right. So when you do your budget, you don't budget a certain amount of money in savings for these different things, for capital improvement, for all of those things?
What do you explain
Well,
that question?
In your budget, there isn't a line item that says capital improvement? 50? $100,000
Not
this
in the
year?
operating
No?
budget. Not in
Okay.
the operating budget. Those would be separate warrant articles.
Okay, so they're always a warrant article. We always have a choice to say yes or no.
Correct, yeah. Now, we do have, as far as roadway money, there is some roadway money that we get from the state, and that goes into our operating budget. Outside of that, there's also the warrant article money that we vote on every year
Okay.
for roadway projects. Same thing, expendable maintenance. We've been budgeting around $200,000 a year, but again, that's a separate warrant article.
Right.
It's not in the operating budget.
Okay.
So it's a dynamic, Mary, where we could potentially put all of the undesignated fund balance money toward the communications project and say, okay, pretty sure this is going to pass, there's no tax impact,
Right.
and it needs a majority vote.
Right.
But if everything else is straight taxes and doesn't have any offset, it's possible those things then don't pass, which means we won't have any roadway maintenance money, we won't have the expendable maintenance money. So it's a...
So what does that generally, I know we're out of time,
Yeah.
but what does that generally run, those two, like those warrant articles? Are they $200,000? Are they $500,000?
Well, I mean, expendable maintenance is, as I said, we've been budgeting $200,000 for that. Roadway maintenance, we've been budgeting around $650,000.
Okay, so we're talking almost $1 million there, so you'd have
Right.
like $2.5 million left.
Right.
Maybe that you could be going towards that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm an advocate for the communications.
Yep.
I would like not
Yeah.
to see it bonded, but if our tax rate went up by
Well, and
You
that's
know,
and that's the benefit
by that
now
1
of.
million?
Well, I was going to say that's the benefit of having now this undesignated fund balance money is. I agree. I don't want to see it bonded either. One, because you need the 60% vote if it's bonded, and two, I'd prefer not to bond things if we don't have
Right.
to. So I think we have enough money in fund balance where you could possibly do a fund balance and a smaller lease. One of the other creative approaches we're looking at is we have a lot of interest in one of our cell towers.
So renting space.
Well, we're already renting. We own the tower right now. And so we rent and lease a space. And I'm going to throw out a number. We maybe get $30,000 a year in rental income. Well, we've had a few companies come to us and say, we'll buy it out from you. We'll buy it out now at a cost of, or at a price of, say, $400,000 to $500,000. So we're looking at saying, maybe we do that. Maybe we sell it for $500,000 and then use that money to
Right.
put toward the communications. Now we've just taken $500,000 off, and we don't have to raise it through taxes or
Sure.
use fund balance.
Sure. As long as we don't have to pay them any leasing or rental fee
Absolutely.
on the tower.
Right. Yes. No, that would be expressly written in there.
Okay.
Yeah. We're not going to rent our own equipment
Right,
on it.
right. Kevin, thank you so much for
Oh,
being
you're
here
welcome.
today.
I know, time flies,
it
doesn't it?
does,
But-
lots and lots of great things that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And budget season's coming.
Yep.
I would encourage everyone to go to the budget meetings or at least watch them on TV so you know what's going on. Don't wait until the public hearings to come and make your voice heard. Come to all of the meetings as they're talking about the specific different things that you might be interested in, and let your voice be heard. There's always public comment at the town council meetings, at the beginning of the meetings. The budget committee will listen to what you have to say. Please become involved. That's how our town stays great. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kevin. And I'll see you next time with Transparency in Government.